This is Fantasy Football Today from CBSSports.com.
We've got a special edition of Fantasy Football Today here on CBSSports.com. For CBS Local Sports, I'm Adam Azer with Jamie Eisenberg and Dave Richard. You can see all their start or sit advice on the website right now, but we're going to tell you who to start and sit for Fantasy Week 7. At each position, one start, one sit. We'll go with the quarterbacks first. Nick Foles, Dave, he's got Dallas. Dallas is the worst defense in fantasy against quarterbacks. So start Nick Foles.
Of course, this is the name that we'd be talking about as a fantasy start in Week 6 of the fantasy football season. But it's true. You watch how Nick Foles has played. He's been outstanding, completed over 70% of his passes. Really has done a great job in the Philadelphia offense. I think he's going to continue to be productive. The Cowboys have allowed 14 passing touchdowns this year. You're going to start Nick Foles. I like him better than a lot of the low-end guys. I like him better than Tom Brady this week. I think he's going to have a good game.
All right, Matt Ryan owners. First week without Julio Jones, coming off a bye, facing Tampa Bay. Start or sit?
That's a great transition because there's only been one quarterback to get above 20 fantasy points against Tampa Bay, and that was Nick
Foles.
I think you're going to see Matt Ryan. It's interesting because probably not going to have Roddy White. Probably not going to have Steven Jackson. Definitely not going to have Julio Jones in what has been a tough matchup for opposing quarterbacks. So it's risky to sit somebody like Matt Ryan, especially until we see exactly what this offense is going to look like. But I think you want to let it play out first, and let's see how Matt Ryan does. Let's see what this offense does look like without Julio Jones, especially with Roddy White potentially out as well.
A look at running backs now. Fantasy owners flock to the waiver wire to get Joseph Randle with DeMarco Murray a little banged up. Start or sit Randle this week against the Eagles.
I like the matchup a lot against Philadelphia, and the Eagles' run defense has actually come to play the last 2 weeks. You look at their stats, they've done okay against opposing quarterbacks, but look who they've played. One game was against the Giants. They had a hard time running the ball. David Wilson got hurt in the game. And then they had Tampa Bay last week. Doug Martin had his opportunities to do well, but Philadelphia really forced to stop the run and dared Mike Glennon to beat them through the air. Philadelphia is not going to have that opportunity. Tony Romo's throwing the football for the Cowboys. He's going to attack over the top. It's going to open up a world of rushing lanes for Joseph Randle. He's being given a good opportunity. He's a good football player. I like him as a top 20 running back this week.
Le'Veon Bell, very good against Minnesota, very disappointing against the Jets, and this week Bell has Baltimore. Start or sit?
I think you could sit him this week. This is actually a pretty good week for running backs. When you talk about D'Angelo Williams having a good matchup, Ryan Matthews having a good matchup, Maurice Jones-Drew having a good matchup, and Le'Veon Bell having a little bit of a difficult matchup. We saw last week he struggled in that matchup against the Jets. Very physical front, was able to push around that offensive line, and I think Baltimore could do the same thing. I know the Ravens just got beat up by Eddie Lacy last week, rookie running back that did well in a similar matchup. But Le'Veon Bell had a little bit of a foot problem last week. Had to leave the game for a little bit in that game against New York, and you have to wonder, is he fully at 100% with that foot? So until we see Le'Veon Bell perform at a consistent basis, when there are guys who have good matchups, I think you can get away from Le'Veon Bell. He's just not a top 24 running back.
All right, who's excited about Monday Night Football?
I know you are.
1-4, 0-7. Oh, of course the Giants win. They're not going 0-7. Of course, I didn't think they were going 0-3 either. But here we are. Hakeem Nicks owners, they could be excited about Monday Night Football. Jamie, you say start Hakeem Nicks against Minnesota.
They should be excited. Look, Hakeem Nicks has actually played well. The numbers haven't exactly been there for him, but he's actually performing well. He's healthy. That's a big thing. And this is a defense that gives up production to opposing wide receivers. So I think you could see Hakeem Nicks come in and do a good job and start to play like the Hakeem Nicks we hope to see from the beginning of the season. Had two good matchups, two good performances so far this season, a couple duds, which I think is part of the reason why the Giants are where they are right now. But I'm buying into Hakeem Nicks as a top 20 receiver this week.
And Dave, Anquan Boldin sit this week?
Yeah, I think you've got to pass on him against Tennessee. The Titans' pass defense has actually stepped up to be one of the better units in the NFL. They haven't allowed a touchdown to a receiver or a 100-yard game to a receiver in 4 straight. So if you're looking for Anquan Boldin to have a big game, I don't think it's going to happen here. Plus, the 49ers are more of a running team these days. What they're going to do is they're going to run, and then it's going to be throwing over the top Kaepernick to Vernon Davis, not to Anquan Boldin.
Hey, who's excited for Monday Night Football, Jamie?
You are.
Kyle Rudolph owners are. 11 targets last week and now facing the 4th worst team in fantasy against tight ends, the Giants, on the road. So he looks like more a part of the offense. And a start this week?
And a better quarterback because Josh Freeman's now going to start for the Minnesota Vikings. That's going to allow Rudolph to get better production from his quarterback, which has been somewhat of an issue for him. Yeah, you mentioned it. Season high in targets with 11, career high in catches with 9, career high in yards over 90, and scored the touchdown facing that good matchup for him. So when you're seeing tight ends right now, we don't have Jimmy Graham. He's on a bye. Obviously, you could use a potential replacement. He was owned in less than 50% of leagues on CBSSports.com. So you can go out and get Kyle Rudolph if he's still available on waivers and start him this week because the matchup's great.
Kobe Fleener, Dave, he's been struggling. We thought he had a great opportunity with Dwayne Allen out for the year. He hasn't gotten it done. So sit him this week.
A couple of drops last week against San Diego, too, and that was a matchup that we kind of liked Fleener in. I think you got to take a step back from Kobe Fleener if you can, and there's enough tight ends on the waiver wire, Kyle Rudolph being one of them, that you can pick up and start in place of Kobe Fleener. Denver has only allowed one big game to a tight end. It was Jason Witten. You go back and you look at their metrics. The 3 tight ends that had at least 10 targets in a game this season had at least 7 fantasy points. I think Fleener might have had 10 targets in one game this year. That's the max. It might be none. He's just not effective enough and not trustworthy for fantasy.
All right, check out our podcast on iTunes. Check out their rankings, fantasynews.cbssports.com. And check out our live show, 11 a.m. Sunday morning. We'll help you set your lineup with some last-minute advice. This has been a special edition of Fantasy Football Today for CBS Local Sports. For Dave Richard and Jamie Eisenberg, I'm Adam Azer. Good luck in Week 7.